So our guest that we have on this evening has hit the Hall of Fame with FFL. Is that 4 times, Steve?
Yes, sir.
4-time Hall of Fame producer here, and he helped well over 1,200 families in 1 year. Now, these aren't team numbers. Steve, on a regular basis, helps over 100 families in a given month, and that's not team. That is him as an individual. Now, he's also growing a big team, and I think when you put up the kind of numbers and you help the number of people that Steve does, it certainly helps when you're trying to build a team, because people want to learn how to do exactly what Steve is doing. He's out there. He's gone from being a producer, a big producer, to where now his team is taking off incredibly. So I have no doubt that by the end of this year, what's your goal, Steve, to help over 1,000 a month? How soon will you be at that?
Yeah, we're hoping to hit board member, God willing, in the next 2 to 3 months, hopefully.
Awesome. And I started watching you when you started growing, and it just seems like, that snowball effect is happening. And, you inspire me every day. You inspire so many people in the company that I'm sure that definitely helps when people talk to you. They want to know, is this a guy that can help take them to the finish line? And definitely you're the one. So Steve, again, we have a lot of brand new people on this call that don't know your story. So I know you've said it a million times, but it's very inspirational to hear it and just to kind of watch your journey through FFL. So if you can kind of just start out, let everyone know exactly where you came from, and then explain how things were at the beginning, and then all of a sudden when that switch clicked, and how now you're able to go out and help so many people on a weekly basis. Anything you can share, I greatly appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you. It's amazing to see what you guys have done. You're somebody I look up to, so it's an honor to be joining you. For me, I'll say this to everybody starting out. If your back is against the wall, that is the greatest gift that God gave you. Because when your back is against the wall and you then get into this company with this opportunity, you can really take it wherever you want to take it. So, my story kind of where I came from into insurance, I had for the longest time wanted to do more, but I didn't know where to go. So I worked in restaurants my whole life and moved around different places, and was always trying to find the promotion. And the promotion in that industry, you had to really move. And I moved from New York to Pennsylvania to Tennessee to Florida, and I was just chasing it. And I always knew there was something out there for me that, with my work ethic, would be the right platform and the right vehicle. Didn't know where it was. Didn't have the guts, to be an entrepreneur, to be honest with you, at the time. Knew Mark Mead from just knowing him through life. He worked at a company that I had worked at in restaurants, and saw what he was doing. And I knew that I had to make a change, and he brought the opportunity to me. And then, starting out, the number one thing I think that I did was I listened to his advice. So if you're on the call, you work with a great mentor, Mike, as well as Frank and others that you guys probably work with. Listen to the things that they're telling you, because they want to put you in the best position, number one. So I listened to Mark, and he basically told me, look, this is the greatest opportunity. Buy leads, invest in yourself, work as hard as you did in restaurants, and you have a very good shot at being highly successful. And, at the time when I started, it was a different world than it is today. Like FFL, if you compare where we are today to, 3.5, almost 4 years ago, completely different animal. So for me, early on, it was trying to figure out leads and lead flow, and then figuring out how to get good at getting in front of people. Now, notice I never said anything about getting good at, like, quote unquote, insurance, right? Insurance is the simple part of what we do. The being able to invest, having the guts to invest, and then having the wherewithal to have a work ethic and getting in front of people is really what this game is all about. The nuts and bolts of a term versus a whole and whatever you want to say and that stuff, that's secondary. Getting good at getting in front of people and then listening to people and caring about people and putting them in the best position possible and being selfless with it is really what ultimately it's all about. So hopefully that kind of gave you a little brief synopsis there.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Steve, when did that light bulb go off for you? When you started out like the rest of us. And I remember hearing your numbers go up, but then all of a sudden something clicked to where you started producing at a very, very high level. Like what changed that day when things just changed for you completely?
It's interesting. You know, my first month, I did about 21 families, and I think I spent in leads like $4,000. So I think the number one thing that clicked early on was going back to listening to mentors. Mark was very, he mapped it out well for me, kind of saying like, look, like, let's get you to spending $1,000 a week on leads and investing that $4,000 in that month, and then let's go to work. So in that month, all right, so I'm doing okay, 21, that's great. And then I said to myself, okay, if I spend 4 and write 21, what happens if I spend 5? Like, what do I have to lose to spend $5,000, right? And you know how I equate it? I always equate it to like when you go to college, right? I bet you a lot of people on this call went to college and they spent like thousands of dollars on an education, of which they're not even in the industry anymore, much like myself. And I was like, all right, well, we're talking about an investment of another $1,000 and just me working a little harder, me working some nights, me working Saturdays. And then I remember being in a house, and early on my challenge was I was from hospitality, so I was Mr. Nice with everybody. But then what ended up happening was I started challenging people. I started getting annoyed that I didn't close. I remember calling Mark specifically after this one appointment, and he challenged me. He goes, man, how does it feel that you didn't protect that lady? And I was like, man, you're right, bro. Like, and I was annoyed. I was annoyed at myself. So I started working harder and challenging people more. And I really started, and I want everybody to take this away. I don't think we talk about this enough. The psychology of who we meet with is really what I think makes you a top producer or not. You have to understand your audience. It's just like in marketing, right? You understand the audience you're marketing to. So I started understanding the audience that I was communicating with, and understanding that you had to be a little bit, let's say, rougher. You had to tell them like it was a little bit more. You couldn't be Mr. Nice. Once they're your client, then you're back to being hospitable, right? Now I have you, you're my client for life, I got you. But to get there, the light switch went off for me that I had to challenge you in the home. And I had to think about the 2 kids that you see in the house, where if you don't get them insurance, those kids could be homeless, those kids could go turn to crime, their entire family tree could be turned around by the fact that you either got them insurance or you didn't. So I started having that passion and understanding my audience. And then obviously your lead spend, your work, and really like meeting people when it was inconvenient for me and convenient for them. Like I've probably been off a handful of Saturdays in the last 4 years. And all of those things adding up started creating massive production month over month.
Wow. Steve, when you first started, was your schedule the exact same that it is right now? Did you jump right in doing what you're doing now? Has that not changed, or what was the activity like in the beginning?
I listened to Mark. He is Mr. 30 appointments a week, and I take this every week, and I've never really changed it. I'm like, I need to see 30 people, or book 30 appointments. Let's say I book 30 and I sit with 18. That's probably the equation, right? So every week, instead of overcomplicating this, I was like, 30 appointments. I didn't analyze the appointments. I didn't try and figure out whose health was what, over the phone. Give me 30 appointments. If you give me 30 and I sit with 18, I'm going to probably sell half. And then guess what? Anybody, if they do this week over week, they're going to get better. And then they're going to sell more than half. And then some weeks, some of those no-shows will get less, and maybe they book 30 and they actually sit with 22, and then they sell 15. So that's always been like, I'm a fundamental guy. Like if you look at sports and athletes, the greatest athletes, even though they have talent, they're fundamentally sound. right? So I've always tried to be, I'm going to just be fundamentally sound day in, day out, week in and week out. So my schedule has always been the traditional dial Monday, Thursday, and run, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Things have obviously changed a little bit in the way of, agency building and calls and trainings and this and that. But I've never lost sight of the roots of what it takes to book enough appointments to see enough people. Because then when you do that, you don't have to be this guru of insurance. If you sit with 5 people, you better be really, really good and convince them all to buy. But if you sit with, 18 of the 30 that you booked and you sold half, you'd easily be protecting 10 families plus a week.
What do you think if the number of appointments is the same? Like, it's not like in the beginning you were doing 10 appointments and now you're doing 50. Your production is always about, you're always sitting with 30 people. What was the biggest difference to get, because it was 30 appointments then, it's 30 appointments now. How did that number grow so significantly with the same number of appointments? Was it better with no shows or better in the house? What was it that changed with that?
I think it's a mixture. I think one, getting better on the phone, locking down appointments. 2, starting to get better at my craft and training in non-money making activity time. Meaning, I hate the agent that's like, hey, I got to train, and then they train at like 9:30 in the morning on Monday. Like, you don't need to train at 9:30 in the morning on Monday. What you need to do is book your appointments and then go take an hour and listen to the inside the sale. Listen to this product training. So I started listening to a lot of stuff and investing a lot of time into the psychology again of people, and then how I was going to present things to those people. And I always looked at everything in this broad picture, meaning when I walk in your home, there's a big underlying problem, but what I want is I want the whole picture. I want to think about and talk about who's losing what when a person passes of Social Security. What do they have in the way of other life insurance? So I started really thinking in that big picture sense. And by doing that, now you come off as very, very credible because you ask really good questions and you get to the root cause. You can walk into a final expense appointment and you can look at it as black and white. Hey, Mary needs $10K for burial. And cool, you might sell Mary $10K for burial. But if you ask questions about her mortgage or her retirement or her this or her kids or her that or her cousin down the street, now you've opened yourself up to where you're able to give more value. You can write more policies. You can help more people in that family because you're looking at things in a broader view.
Okay. What can you give us some of the, and this is a big deal. Sometimes when we talk and we let people know, we ask a lot of questions, but a lot of people say, can we go over exactly what are some of those questions that you ask when you initially sit with someone, and where are you trying to lead them to? What are you trying to get to at the end?
Great question. I'm glad you asked it. So, I'm big in rapport from the door, I like to call it, meaning a lot of people like to build this crazy rapport with people and they want to get them to like them, right? Mm-hmm. To feel like they're going to sell them. What I try and do is, yes, I want you to like me and I want to build that, we'll call it rapport, but I'm asking you questions from the minute I walk in that are pertinent to the reason I'm there. Hey Bob, how long you lived here? Where are you from originally? What do you do for work? How long have you worked there? And then I'm talking, kids, beneficiaries. I'm rapid firing questions at you. I'm not asking you questions about the sports score. I'm not asking you things that are irrelevant. I'm asking you things that are irrelevant to your life, your family, your finance. And then I'm letting them know who I am, what I do. And I'm getting right into the questions to figure out what are their needs? What are their overall financial needs? Forget even insurance. What are their needs? What is the loss? I always love to focus on loss as opposed to gain, because if you talk about loss with insurance as opposed to, hey, I'm going to go get this policy that gives me $500,000 of death benefit. If you sell insurance that way, it's going to be harder to sell, in my opinion. But if you talk about, all right, I just did your budget and you make this and you make this and we're going to lose this and we have to replace this. Let's get you something permanent that's going to go forever. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. It brings the product to life. So I try to do that, and all of my questions are centered around those things, then into health. The second thing I'd say quick would be the art of underwriting. If you're trying to learn this, don't focus on products. Focus on, like I said, the psychology of people, and two, becoming a good underwriter. Now, here's where the sales part of that comes in. When you become a good underwriter, you have to sell Bob, who's 67, who has COPD, on the fact that the company that'll take COPD on a whole life makes more sense for Bob as opposed to the $100,000 term that he wants. That's the hard part of the sale. But if I can do that and I can make him understand that, hey, even if you were healthy and you got a whole, it would only go for so long, it would be more expensive, it would run out. You're painting this picture as to this is what you can get, Bob, and this is why this makes sense. A lot of times I see agents where they walk in and it's like, all right, well, what are you looking for? And what does everybody want? A monster term. Well, now you've just taken a lot of sales off the table, because let's face facts. You're not going to meet with everybody that's 30 years old and crazy healthy and wants an IUL for $500 a month. You're just not. So you got to curtail your sale to the individual you're sitting with and sell them on why that's the greatest thing for them.
I agree. That was a big problem that I had when I started. And I think as a new agent, the biggest thing that people have to learn how to do is, especially on mortgage protection or even some of these internet leads, people send in a lead and they think that, they're looking for 100,000, 200,000. And I tell people all the time, I walk into a $500,000 home and walk out with a $10,000 policy because it's what made sense and what they could qualify for. And I think that's the biggest trick, is learning how to pivot and do that. So I appreciate that, Steve. Right now, would you say that it's still for you primarily mortgage over final expense?
It's a mix. I mean, the challenge is right now the mortgage game of leads. You have refis have, really kind of halted a little bit because the rates have gone up. You got direct mail is not as abundant as it was. So I've always tried to never fall in love with one thing because of that scenario I just mentioned, right? Like, you can never say this thing is going to be the thing. It's the same thing a couple years ago with Facebook leads, around the time of the election. We were getting less and less because there's more ad spend on other things. So I've always been a believer diversity, because the problem is a lot of people try to look for the perfect lead. The perfect lead is a lot of different types. So if you're new, your first lead order should be more abundant, because you should be getting, I'd say, 2 to 3 types, or from 2 to 3 vendors. Never put all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely. What are you doing right now, Steve, when you have new agents? You're hiring a lot of people. How are you getting a new agent up and running right from the beginning? What are you telling them in terms of schedule, lead flow? What are they doing to get up and moving?
The biggest thing that I want to get with a new agent on is what their why is, because the challenge sometimes, and you can attest, being top producer, Hall of Fame producer yourself, you look at this and you're like, man, like, you can come in, Bob, and you can kill it, and you can write what I write or be a Hall of Famer, but it doesn't always equate, because like they might just want to go protect 10 families a month. So the first thing I'm trying to do is establish with them, what is it that they want? What is their why? And then I want to basically, fix the schedule and the lead spend around what they're looking to do. The next thing that I'm going to look at is kind of their tolerance for risk, right? Like, I'm going to tell you what it's going to take. Like, we could all tell you, hey, if you do X, like, roundabout close to where you're going to be. Obviously, it's never exact. So I'm trying to establish that with them. What are you looking to get out of this? So this way I can coach you accordingly. If it's just to write 10, cool. If it's to protect 50, cool. We can tell you either way, but I'm trying to really garner from them what is it that they want, so then we can kind of fit them where they're looking to go.
Perfect. What do you do right now, Steve? You bring someone in and you're helping 100 families a month, and their goal is to do 10. Can you coach them? Do they need your help to do 10 a month? I mean, do they need to talk to you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I get a lot of people, the in-home calls, they call you, hey, like I'm with Bob and this, that, and the other. The thing that I try and tell people around what their goal is, I know what it's going to take for you to be profitable. I want you to be profitable. In my opinion, protecting 20 families a month helps you be profitable. Because I always try to look at the business in the way of loss. If we know that, let's say on average, 20% of policies charge back, we got to account for that. It's like any other business. If I ran a Walmart and 20% of my items got brought back, I need to account for that. So I'm trying to get them to a profitable level. Now, if they're looking to do 10 and they're more just like a part-time, I have another job, what have you, cool, no problem. Like I'll just coach you on, hey, this is what it's going to be. But I'm trying to get you enough abundance so this way we can handle some chargebacks, we can handle some negative stuff, we can get you some momentum in whatever that schedule or number looks like.
Steve, you seem so cut and dry. I can't imagine being a new agent, and it happens.
Yeah.
Agents come on board and they're upset. How do you handle that? Because it happens everyone goes through it, right? We all, especially if you've never done this before, man, it's like the world is crashing, every other week in the beginning. How do you talk a new agent through that? Because we all do it in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's probably the biggest challenge. For me, I try to let people understand that things are normal, right? Like when people look at me and they're like, oh my God, like Steve, #1 producer, like all that really means is that I probably got told no more times because I'm just running more appointments and I'm just working more. That doesn't mean like I'm like special or magical. So I'm trying to like relate it to them being like look, like I deal with the same cancellations, I deal with the same things, I run in the same areas. The difference is I'm gonna go to the next appointment or you. So I'm trying to like let people know in the beginning, like failure is normal. 7 out of 10 times failing, making phone calls or closing in the house or whatever, that's not like this abnormal thing. That is a normal thing. The difference is, and this is in life in general, how you handle adversity. We all know how to handle the good times. Mm-hmm. How you handle adversity, though, is going to tell me a lot about if you're going to make it, which a lot of this stuff I'm trying to get out in my conversations early on. Like, what are you going to do, Bob? Like, you ran an appointment and you sold it and then they canceled. Like, are you going to dial the next day or are you just going to go, crawl up in a hole? I want to understand that with you because I'll tell you flat out, like, this is either for you or it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone goes through it in the beginning. It's those that keep going that end up, remaining and staying in the business. But I think far too many people, they don't understand how important mindset is in this business, I think overall else. And if they can't control that, then they're out, Yep,
100%.
Steve, anything else that you can share, like any other words of wisdom that you can impart on? We have, like I said, a lot of new agents that are on this call, that are on here every week. Anything else that you can share that could help them, just getting started?
Yeah, I think one, understand where you are. This opportunity is so ridiculously, insanely bonkers to me. I pinch myself every day to think about where I came from. Like I was doing okay. I made, $100,000 a year, working, in the hospitality industry to what I'm able to do now, from personal production and a team. I think you need to understand where you are. I think you need to figure out where it is that you want to go, if that's being a top producer, if that's building a big team, whatever it is that makes you tick and whatever you want, understand where you are. Like, this is the place. We are legitimately changing the industry, which is crazy. We just went through a pandemic and we got stronger because we evolved, we adapted, we started doing things differently, telesales, Zoom, what have you. So I think if you're new and you can have that belief to say, like, man, like, I'm in the right place, there's enough stories of success here of every walk of life, and then understand that it's not always going to be easy. But nothing that's great will ever be easy. Now, is it the hardest thing in the world? Are we out there, roofing houses in South Florida and, the 150-degree weather? No. We're going and meeting with people that need help and need insurance. Are some of them going to be difficult? Hell yeah, they are. But guess what? Some of my most difficult clients are the ones that I sold, and the ones today that if I called them, they'd have me come over and get them, get me cookies. So I think you have to understand where you are and understand this opportunity and be appreciative of it every single day. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. But when you look at the amount of production we do as a company, when you look at the amount of 24 integrity partners, yourself, you're well on the way. Look forward to seeing that coming down the pike soon.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's life changing. Now, is there sacrifice? 100% there is. But you find me the entrepreneur that didn't sacrifice and didn't work, tirelessly to get to their goal. But the amazing thing here is, if I look at what I've done in 4 years, that's what a lot of people don't do in 10 to 15. So you condense the time frame because of the system. So I think if you're new, you have to understand that, and then you have to put in the work. There is no magical pill that you're going to take. I think a big thing for me that I tried to do this year and kind of my evolution is you have all your clients in your leads and all this stuff that you can call on. Become passionate about doing this. You should talk to everybody about insurance. If you have a license, everybody you come in contact with should be a potential client. Everybody that, if you're building a team, you come in contact with should be a potential agent on your team. People are hurting in the country right now. Gas prices are crazy. The mortgages, everything is crazy. The opportunity is off the chart. So you should get obsessed with sharing it and talking about it. And what I find for me, the more I do that, the more success that I have. Because I'm sharing and I'm just talking about insurance all day in, all day out. And then what happens? You call your leads, you have your current clients, you're getting referrals, you're talking to other people, and it's a snowball effect. And the same thing happens on the side of recruiting. So if you're new, that should be the way that you attack the business. Take your fear, put it over here. You can't have faith and fear. You got to have one or the other. If you're here, have faith that you're in the right place. If you stumble, it's okay. We all do. Call your mentor, see what you did wrong, learn from it. And some of the greatest failures that I've had have been followed up by some of my greatest successes because I learned from them.
I love it. Steve, when you got into the business, two more questions. When you got into the business, did you come in with a big bankroll to get things started? And if you did, how do you handle a new agent that comes in with $500? So first when you came in, did you have a big bank started?
I did not. I definitely did not. I had a mortgage payment. I had just basically lost a job that I was making $100,000 a year, and I didn't know. I didn't. I had, maybe I had a couple grand, but I knew this. The first thing that I thought about was, and I tell this to new agents, if you have, and not everybody has great credit, but if you have decent credit and you started an LLC and you went and got a business credit card or even a regular credit card, or you could get some money. And just like everybody, like I said earlier, in the way of going to college, you can get some college student loans, whatever. If you can get some money and you can say, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to, credit card $4,000 and I'm going to go to work. Now, the key of this is, and this is where I think people miss the mark, some of them do it, but then they don't go to work. Now, when I say work, if that's you better be basically working the next 30 days. But I promise you, if you do that, you're going to come out the other side. You will have paid your lead bill off for the prior month, the $4,000. You'll have another $4,000 to put in for next month. Pay yourself a salary, and let's assume you protect, 15 to 20 families. Account for 20% chargebacks, and then do it again. Mm-hmm. That's the way you have to attack the business. Think of it as a business. I think a lot of times people get into this, they don't think about the fact that now we have to become a business person. I was not. I don't know if you were, if you were business prior to this, were you?
I owned a mortgage company prior to this.
Got it. Okay. No wonder you're so successful. So, when you get into this, you got to start thinking a little bit about the business mindset. Like, okay, I have a business now. What can I do to get myself some money? If it's only $500, it's $500. You got work spots. You got people you can talk to all around you who need insurance. You have social media. Like, there's plenty of ways to drum up some sales early on. The number one thing I'd say, if you have some decent credit, start a business credit card and get your business going that way.
Awesome. And your schedule, you're like notoriously known for this guy that's up every day at 4:30. Was it always that way?
When I was in hospitality, my schedule was crazy, so I started going to the gym early, and I'd been in that routine, God, probably like 10 years now. There's something about when I wake up in the morning where I'm like, I feel like somebody's taking something from me, and I gotta go attack. Like, you have to attack. I've named my group Health and Wealth because I think you're not going to be successful in your business or your wealth if your health is thrown to the back. So I've tried to always make sure that number one, I'm healthy, energized. So this way you can attack the day and have more energy, run more appointments, make more money. It's kind of just the way that I've always tried to operate. It's not easy. It's hard. Everybody wants to sleep in. But you know what? It gets you to where you want to go. Your fear of loss should always be greater than your desire for gain, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And you're up every day at 4:30, Steve, 7 days a week?
Not 7. I mean, typically, we'll say the 6 days that I work, and then, what ends up happening Sunday, like sleeping in might be like 6, and then your body just wakes up at that point, like.
Man, I've been. I saw the new house. Congrats. And another baby. So now two children. Things have changed quite a bit for you since you came here, man. It's just awesome watching that.
100%. Thank you.
And your mom. You got your mom involved and she's just the most positive person. I see her commenting on everything. She's like into it, man. She's fired up.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That is very, very cool, man. Well, Steve, I appreciate you jumping on our call. Watching what you do is just absolutely amazing. I hope some people on here take just a little bit of what you had to share, and we can start putting out some top producers out of this group. So I appreciate it, Steve.
100% appreciate you guys. Anything I could do for you is always an honor.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Have a good one, man.
You're good. Enjoy your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.